What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Nesler. We come to you each and every week to talk to you about the business of moto. Guests in the industry that have done incredible things, guests in the industry that are building incredible things, and sometimes even special guests from outside the industry that can bring you some incredible knowledge to help you build your moto career. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Nesler. We've got a great guest for you today. We've got a good topic we're going to dive into here in just a moment. But before we do, just want to say thanks to the people that support us. Obviously, this wouldn't be possible without RacerX and everything they do. And man, I'd love for you guys to support them. So racerxonline.com/Moto Marketing. They've always got some really cool giveaways and sometimes some collector items, things like that you can get for renewing or subscribing. Sometimes you even get a membership for your friend for free. Also want to give a special thanks to 100%. Obviously, you guys know them. You know the name. They're an unprecedented global leader in moto goggles, but they're making a lot more than that these days. My team, we use them on the Impact, Michelin, Walmsley Cycles, mountain bike racing team that we compete in the GNCC series. 100%'s been a big supporter of that, and we're using a lot of their gear, their glasses. They make awesome helmets and protection, casual sport performance glasses, technical fleeces, things like that. Anything you want for on and off the track, as well as Michelin Bicycle. Everybody knows FMIP. Everybody knows Randy Richardson, and a lot of you guys use their moto tires. But if you have an e-bike, if you have a mountain bike, if you have a BMX bike, Michelin got their start making world-class bicycle tires way back when. And now, man, they're making some of the top of the line, the highest performing bicycle tires that are winning World Cup races. They're winning e-mountain bike races in GNCC. We run the Wild AM2s, the Wild Enduros, the E-Wild tires, just a lot of really great things. We've heard Steve Mathis talk about them on their show. So be sure to follow them on Instagram. It's Michelin Bicycle, and stop by your local shop and see if they carry it. If they don't, tell them you got to get Michelin. It's world-class tire. So, all right, today's guest, a friend of mine, we've had him on before, somebody you know well. He's got a really, really awesome brand that he's built from nothing, and he's made it a success. And I wanted to bring Michael Leib back on, really to have a more of a conversation than an interview. And Michael and I have had this idea of just kind of talking about business. And there's a lot of people listening to this that are aspiring entrepreneurs, want to get into business, want to start their own company, because Instagram makes everybody think that you're living the dream. And you definitely can be. But there's a lot that comes with it when starting something from scratch and growing it. I know that. Michael knows that. And Michael's got a different perspective on that, from being a professional athlete, transitioning into being a full-time professional entrepreneur, and all that comes along with that. So, man, welcome back to the show. It's always great catching up with you.
I appreciate being back, man. Big fan of the show, and you and I always had fun conversations, so this should be fun.
Yeah. Before we dive in, I do want to give you a little head nod to what you're doing with Jerry Robin and all the custom gear that he's been running at the different Supercross races. Man, tell us a little bit about that. Some of the things that you guys have been doing have really not only caught my attention, but just fans of the sport. I think everybody's pretty pumped on what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, I mean, for us, putting Jerry, for example, just in another canvas set of gear that we do a pre-design and a pre-launch on, it has value. But a lot of people don't really understand how much freedom that we have when it comes to the design concept of what we do with our gear. So SKDA actually hit us up, and they helped Jerry out, and they wanted to kind of, do something different in the sense of just showing people some different creativity and doing something a little bit outside the box. A few people have done it here and there. Like, obviously, like I remember Dungy did, I think it was a Viking round or something like that. And, everyone gets super stoked on it and so forth. But, we have the ability to switch things up on a per week basis. And we think that that's just something cool to kind of show people that we can make anything. And it doesn't necessarily, have to be something that's completely moto related, but, we call it like the Canvas Crossover Series. So for every round that they're going to throughout the rest of the year in Supercross, we'll have new kits, and we sell all those kits online. They're all on canvasmx.com, and yeah, we've got some cool ones coming up here at the end as well.
That's awesome, man. They look awesome. And it's been something you guys are doing that you've really kind of carved your own lane, and you're doing some things that nobody else is really doing at the scale you guys are doing it. So it's been cool to see. Man, when you were on before, so we talked about your, where Canvas came from, and just to kind of catch people up to speed that maybe missed that episode. You were an athlete looking to do something for yourself, and then that turned from just a personal project into a full-on business. And now, working with you directly and just, full, transparency, we work with Michael and his team on a lot of their digital marketing. So we have a lot of close contact with the projects that you're working on. Like, man, you're doing things. I mean, this thing went from a personal project to a hobby to a side hustle to a full-on business that now you guys are trying to really scale out. So you've seen every kind of iteration of being an entrepreneur, from idea to startup to trying to figure out how can we be more profitable and scale. Man, and from that, like, there's a lot of scars and battle wounds, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger and makes you a more proficient entrepreneur. Like, you just in the short amount of time you've been in business full time, like, you guys have gone through a lot and seen a lot. And I think that's why we wanted to come on today and just talk, because everybody has an idea. Everybody wants to start a business. Everybody wants to quit their job because they think it'll be easier than what they're doing. But man, it's not always that way. So I don't know, when somebody talks to you about business and they're like, man, you must be killing it. Like, what? Like, whenever I hear that, I'm always thinking like, yeah, but if you only knew the stuff I deal with, whether it's something with staff or clients or whatever it is, it's not always what it's cracked up to be. And it's also great at the same time. What's your kind of outlook on business in general?
I mean, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? Like, I think any person that clocks in and clocks out in a 9 to 5 would say, oh, well, you can go golfing during the day and you have freedom and this and that and so forth. But what they don't understand, what lately has carried a lot of weight for me, is like, we never get to clock in and clock out, right? And when we go to bed, and like, there's been countless nights throughout the last few months that, it's like I lay in bed at night thinking like, oh my God, I forgot to reply to this person or this person. I didn't overnight their gear, or, whatever it is, it never stops. And I think that's there's pros and cons to everything. And the pros and cons list to, whether you work a 9 to 5 or whether you run a business, they're huge on both sides. And, I think that in the end, you can get a lot further possibly owning your own business, and you have a lot more opportunity, but there's a lot of risk and a lot of stress that comes with that, right? Like, I mean, just to paint a picture, like we've had some issues with the whole China thing going on in the Long Beach, and people not being able to import things from China. So it's causing everyone to start producing soft goods where you need a sewing capacity, and you need materials from China, and you need all these other things that people are now trying to do domestically, that has kind of got in the way of some of our sewing process. And we've had weeks where, we've been a little late on some orders by a week or two, and, people, stress out, and then you start getting blown up. And it's like, when you do a 9 to 5, you don't got to go home as an employee necessarily worried about that. As a business owner, that's somebody that is directly affected by your brand. And,
right.
I carry a lot of weight on the whole not over promising and under delivering. And, I mean, there's things in business that are out of your control, but ultimately the buck stops with whoever runs and owns that business. And, a lot of that weight falls on you, and that's a heavy weight for me. That's been one of the recent surprises for me. I think that's really carried a lot of weight on my end.
Yeah, man, it's interesting, because obviously people that work for an employer have just a very different outlook on things that we do, but then in different industries, like, my worries and struggles are very different than your worries and struggles, because even though we work together, I'm in a completely different space. Like, I'm in the client services business. I don't know the first thing about, having relationships with manufacturers overseas and shipping delays, other than the fact that we've literally lost clients in the last 24 months because they can't get inventory, not because they're dissatisfied with their service. So it's a lot of my worries and struggles and things that I get paid, what I get paid to overcome, are coming down to like systems, processes, training staff, product development, and our products are service-based. So it's, you could argue that it's 100% profit margin because we don't have to buy the product and sell it. Whereas on your end of the spectrum, like I would assume you're always looking for a better quality product that you're not losing and killing your profit margin on, and then how long is it going to take that manufacturer to make it over the last one? It's business entrepreneurship. It all has the same word, entrepreneurship. But man, it's all so different. It's insane. It'll give you a headache when you try to think about it and break it all down.
On the flip side, though, like as a racer, I mean, I have a lot of friends that are still racing professionally, and we have another side of the conversation of, what do you want to do when you're done racing, right? As a racer, or whatever career that you're in prior to kind of jumping into business, I guess you could say as an athlete, what do you want to do? What do you want to go spend the rest of your life doing as a career? I mean, that's a really scary thought. But one of the things, as you touched on, was I don't get me wrong. Like, I think what we do with Canvas is really cool, and I'm really inspired by where I see the company in 2 to 3 years from now. And I'm really passionate about that, but more so the way that different businesses operate, and the different struggles and the different pros and cons list of what you do compared to what I do. Or I'm really fascinated by people just in the finance world and all that stuff. And I found a lot of love in trying to figure out and solve those different problems within different companies. And I've actually really enjoyed, I'd say, that process the most, of trying to figure out how to make things work and be efficient and all that stuff. But eventually you got to scale, and eventually you got to grow. And, it's like the second that you think that you've got anything figured out, man, life's right there to tell you don't know a damn thing about it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. It's when you're saying that, it makes me think of, man, before COVID hit, like, man, we were really hitting our stride, and I would say borderline getting comfortable, which is something that I've learned is not a good thing, because then you get complacent. But man, I mean, like, the business was running itself, and we had an awesome team, and then COVID hits, and it shakes things up. And never in a million years did I think I would have the majority of my staff not being in office. We have a 4,000 square foot office space here, and right now there's 4 of us, and two of them own the business. Me and my business partner, plus our producer Josh, and our comms and web director Mike work in this office. At one point we had 13, 15 people working here, and everything changed when COVID hit because a lot of the people moved on because they wanted remote jobs, and we were reluctant to change, and we didn't want to go remote. We were only going to be in person. And then we were left with no option. So we started hiring remote, which that initial stress turned into a blessing in disguise. We have the most talented team we've ever had. It's just now I've got people in Hollywood, California. I got Phoenix, Arizona, Florida, Maine, Maryland, PA, West Virginia. Like, they're all across the United States. Yeah, man, it's right when you think something is like predictable, like the unpredicted happens. Like, it was a pandemic, and now it's, the verge of World War III. Like, it's always something. Inflation and gas prices, and it's I feel like being an employee, and my wife is an employee. She's a speech pathologist, and she comes home and she's got a very hard job. She works with autistic kids and people that have had strokes and things like that, but it's predictable. She goes and does the same thing every single day. Josh, my producer, has got a very challenging job. He's always got to make clients happy, but he has to focus on that one object that's right in front of him, where when you own the business, like, you're over here trying to put out this fire and then put out that fire and then push the company forward. It's like you're all over the place. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just, I think the reason we're having this conversation is I want people to understand that. Like, it's not just, man, Michael, he's balling, man. He owns his own business. Yeah, Michael's busting his ass and running like 19 different directions at one time to make sure that business stays alive, and then figure out how to make it thrive and grow.
Right. And I totally agree with you. And I think that, a lot of the people that I talk to that, look at me and my example for, I run a gear company, and, yeah, things on the outside look pretty simple and fun and easy, right? Outdoor sporting and golfing and doing fun things. Cause like, dude, we need a release. Like we need to get away and to clear your mind. Right. But, I mean, the amount of money that Canvas brings into the amount of money that, you're left with at the end of the month, man, is pretty wild. And, making a product in USA is something that I think holds a lot of value. And I think that as, the last 4 years, political sides or not, people are starting to look more at the made in USA side and starting to kind of cling on to, products that are made in USA. And man, like there's not moto gear that's really made in USA. And there's a reason for that. It is really, really tough to do. And for example, like our Moto pant took me 3 years to be able to get that produced here, simply because a sewer can produce 6 or 7 jerseys getting paid by the piece, as opposed to making one pant. Mm-hmm. And how to make that work and how to pay enough for the sewers to, actually produce you a pant, which is a vital product of our catalog of what we offer. And how do we, get the production side to match, for example, what China does? Well, people have good and bad things to say about our product and our pant, especially being a pretty simple pant. Now, I can argue the fact that Fox and Thor and all these, high-end gear companies have gone a lot more towards a simplistic pant where, your older age demographic maybe don't like that. Maybe they feel it and they think, oh, this is cheap, when maybe a 16-year-old thinks like, oh, dude, this is awesome. Like this feels quality. And, China is producing hundreds of thousands of pants a year, and they could put all the bells and whistles, the zippers, the pockets, the side straps, all these things, right? And, I can't do that here because cost-wise, it's astronomical. Yeah. It would cost $220, $230 to produce what they produce in China for 60 to 70. Yeah. And, there's the headache of trying to figure out that side of it. And like, as you point, like in different directions, like, okay, well, who's going to run the Instagram? Who's going to handle the customer service, the phone calls, all these things, and then trying to figure out a way to budget of like, hey, I'm going to budget 2 to 3 people to hire. Well, hiring 2 to 3 people is going to cost you $12,000 a month, right? And then you've got to learn the payroll, and then you've got to learn the benefits, and then you've got to have all of these different things involved in your company. As people start smaller companies and grow into a larger company where you need to make those changes, for me, that has been a huge wake-up call. Yeah. Because in the end, it's like constantly, it's like corporate tax days today, right? So we all just turned in our corporate taxes. Well, you look at the books and it's like, man, everyone's just out to take money from my company that quote unquote thinks it's doing so well and there's so much money and profit going around. Like at the end of the month, I'm like, where did it all go?
Yeah, man, it's wild.
But that also does pose for me a really fun, unique challenge of like, okay, well, number one, we have sales. Number two, we have a product. So how do we make it more efficient? Where can we cut the fat? And how do you spend time working on the company when you're too busy working in the company? And how do you change all of these things around where, you kind of find that happy medium? It's a lot. Yeah.
I think, well, you literally just said one of the things that my business partner and I always talk to each other about, and it's somebody had said this to me a long time ago, and it changed everything for me. And they said, man, you're stuck working in your business instead of working on your business. And it took me a minute to realize what the hell that meant. But when I realized it meant that I was trying to control and do everything. In one point, we started with my business partner, myself, and we had an intern, and then it slowly grew from there. But I mean, it took us from 2012 to 2018 to crack 7 figures, and it was because I was working in the business and not on the business, meaning I needed more people. The problem is people are expensive, and really good people are really expensive. But if you find the right people and you realize that, okay, this person cost me this, but they take this much time off of my plate, then I can spend that much of that time working on my business, and then it starts to scale. It's just, I tell my wife this all the time. Like when I first started, like business was a game to me. Like I got into entrepreneurship when entrepreneurs became celebrities, like Grant Cardone and Gary Vaynerchuk and Mark Cuban and all these guys. Like, people get their autographs with them like they're athletes. So to me, like, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be sexy. And then it had to kick me in the face like 19 times before I woke up and realized that I'm not in this because it's fun. I'm in this because I'm passionate about what I'm providing as a service. I'm good at it. I got to stop playing business and start actually being an operator. And that's when it changed for me. And that's one of the things I think's really cool about you. And there's some other people that have transitioned from athlete to business professional in the sport. But man, like, you've done a lot in a really short amount of time. From, you were still racing professionally. Was it at 19 or 18?
I raced one race in 19. I went to Houston, and then I raced 20. 2020 was
okay. So
my last.
Yeah, that's even crazy. Like, you haven't been focused full time with zero racing on this business for that long at all, and like, you're already, like, you're working on some really cool things. It's been cool to see, but it's like, I don't know, man. People just don't understand. There's a lot that you go through, even if it's in a short amount of time like you have, let alone when you're 10 years into this business. You'll look back on this conversation now and be like, man, if I would have known then what I know now, like, I'd be that much further ahead. But I think that's part of it. Like, you stumble into these things, learn and grow from them.
I heard a phrase the other day. It was, the man that enjoys walking will walk further than the man that enjoys the destination, right? And, for the first time 3 or 4 months back, I got so emotionally involved in the company that it was starting to work really far against me. And I kind of got cloudy in the sense of, the direction of where I wanted to take things, because at a certain point, when you wake up at 6 a.m. and you have 8 text messages and 30 plus emails from people asking you questions to when you go to bed, your phone's ringing still at 9 or 10 o'clock. Like, that's a bad part on my part. I need to obviously separate that and get different phones for that. But, it's like, I got so emotionally clouded that I started, like, really not thinking straight. Right. And you start to worry so much about those particular little problems. And then you get stuck deeper into working in the company rather than, like, okay, I'm on a treadmill with this. Until I fix the root cause of this problem and figure that out, this problem is never going to go away. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's just going to escalate. So I've recently had a lot of fun kind of learning that side of it and learning some parts of some leadership size. And man, the amount of stuff that you need to run a business is pretty wild. And, I think that people from the outside looking in, like, I know a lot of people that talk and, know all about Andy Frisella. And Andy Frisella is a really successful guy, and he has a lot of really good points. But what he's also done is built a team around his company that has allowed him to succeed. And he might not be the best at necessarily formulating, what product and formula is the best supplement and this and that for whatever category it might be in his network. But he went out and found someone to do that.
Right.
And then he went out and found someone to help him market it. And then he went out and found someone to help create a funnel. And the point that I'm getting at is, for, I think, about 6 months, I overcomplicated so many things within the company, instead of just taking it back to, like what you said earlier, it was kind of a game to get into in the beginning, right? And it was fun and it was exciting and things kind of seemed easier. And then it's like, over time, they kind of get more difficult. And, I had a mental reset like 6 or 8 weeks ago of like, okay, let's take this back 4 or 5 years and let's take this back into a simpler time and idea of like, hey, this is how the simple way to do things is. I mean, so you mentioned Andy. I had the opportunity to see him speak at a couple of events. One of our clients is close friends with him, and I have a lot of respect for him. And I learned a lot from him when I was still like early in my entrepreneurial career. Like I started my business in 2012, but man, when I first started my business, it was a video production business, and I was dead set on being like a top tier video producer. I wanted to be,
nationally known for my craft. And then I realized, like, this sounds bad, but it is what it is. Like, I like making money more than I like the craft of producing videos. I still see a need for video. I don't do it anymore. Josh, our video producer, is one of the most talented guys I've ever had work for me. I don't know a damn thing about what he does, and that was my obsession and my focus for years. And then I realized what was making me money was marketing businesses. So then I became obsessed with being a marketer. And man, I'm like 6 years removed from that. I have a team of like 5 people that do the marketing. I don't know how to run a Facebook ad. I know why you run a Facebook ad. Right. I know what it can do. So what I've come to realize is exactly what you've said is I'm really good at building a team. And if I know my team needs to have creatives like video producers, designers, and then marketers, and then data analysts, like, I'm not going to learn that because I want to be a business person and build something at scale. So I think there's a lot of people that video and photos big in our industry. I think there's a lot of people in this sport that, like I was saying, there's a lot of video and photo enthusiasts. And I think what people need to understand is, do you want to be an artist and really good at video and photo, or do you want to build a video and photo company? Because those are two totally different things. Like, do you want to be an artist and make like the craziest looking gear and something that like is abstract and like you're an artist, or do you want to build the most badass custom gear brand that there is? Those are two, in my opinion, those are two different things. Like, you got to have a team to build that gear brand, as opposed to if you're an artist, like, it's, they're two different things. And you can do them together at some capacity, but at scale, like, you got to have people and step back from being in control of everything at some point. And I think you've mentioned that, you're doing a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, just to touch on, like, you started in 2012. You started to be a filmer, right? You started to go out and do the videography side. And then throughout those years, I mean, we're 10 years later. Would you ever see yourself being in the spot that you are now?
Yeah, no way. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I didn't start Canvas because I wanted to make custom gear. I started Canvas because I found a void through my racing that we weren't able to get money out of gear companies and pay for racing. That's absurdly expensive. And if we're going to go do that, how are we going to take $1,000 from a gear company when the year before I got 20? So then I went out and got white gear, and then I got in the hospital and I got hit up by my buddies in Argentina with Radical. And it was, hey, do you want to start selling black and white gear? Sure.
Yeah.
People wanted name and numbers. People wanted logos. Then people wanted color. Well, here we are today, right? I mean, I never set out to start a gear company. You never set out to start a marketing company or any of that stuff, right? I mean, but like what you just said, what people I think should really start thinking about that are, listening to this podcast, for example, is you can build a good team. Mm-hmm. Think about the different avenues that you could take that, right? I like taking a problem and trying to fix it, or to figure out a way or solution to make it better, right? Those are things that you can put into a lot of different scenarios and choose a lot of different career paths with. And, social media and all these things that we have access to at our fingertips now, yeah, it is worse in the sense of like, there's so much overwhelming thoughts, but that also creates a lot of opportunity. Yeah. It creates a lot more competition, but it does create a lot more opportunity.
Yeah. And man, like, we're about 30 minutes into this, and I want to make sure everybody understands, like, Michael and I are not bitching and complaining. And man, I know there's a lot of people that listen to this that are entrepreneurs that are probably nodding their head and being like, yeah, and also this. Like, we're not, I love what I do, from the standpoint of and I don't consider what I do marketing. I love, again, I'm in the business of making money. I make money for my clients. I make money to be able to pay my staff. Like, I love making a machine that makes money, that I'm able to do cool things with that. Like, and there's a lot of challenges that come along with it. Like, Michael, you might not be like, yeah, I make gear. Like, you might be like, man, I'm in a business of making sure they're protected and making sure that they feel and look badass. Like, I don't sell gear, I sell an image. Like, That's how I look at what I do. I'm not passionate about marketing at all. I'm passionate about helping businesses grow. I'm just good at building a team that's good at marketing. I'm not even good at marketing myself. I'm good at building a team that's good at marketing. And I love what I do, and I don't think I'd love what I do. I don't think I would love what I'm doing as much as I do if it was easy. I think the challenge is what makes it rewarding, and you have that kind of like bravado and confidence because you overcome the stuff that you've overcome. Like the amount of stuff. I mean, I slept in my office. I had, when I went on my bachelor party, I literally told my wife this the first time 2 weeks ago, and she was like, I probably shouldn't have told her this. She was floored. I had like $450 in my bank account when I went on my bachelor party, and my bachelor party was in Vegas. So that went over real well. Like the fact that I overcame all that, it sucked, but I'm super proud of it. I mean, it's part of the journey and building that successful entrepreneur. And whether you're looking at you or you're looking at somebody like Mitch Payton or Troy Lee or Pete Fox, all the greats in the sport, like it hasn't been an easy road to get where they're at and to get where you are now, where you're going to be in 10 years. And I think that's what makes it great.
I totally agree. I mean, yeah, we're definitely not complaining. I think in the end, Instagram shows everyone's best part of their life, and Instagram shows everyone's best part of their business. And no one talks about the trenches. No one talks about the work that it takes to get there, and no one really talks about the struggles and this and that. And it's like, oh, everything's perfect. I mean, don't get me wrong. You and I obviously have built things that do very well, and we're, taking it to the next level. And we are in a very blessed situation, both of us. And I mean, speaking of COVID, there's a lot of people out there, man, that lost everything to it, and that sacrificed the same thing that you and I sacrifice, same thing that other people sacrifice in business. And man, it's sad to think that all that happened, and where things are with it. And I don't really know necessarily where I'm going with that side of it, but we're definitely not complaining about where we are. We're just shedding some light on some other areas that I don't think anyone else really cares to talk about and share.
Yeah. It's your example of Instagram. I think that's the purpose of this. Is there's a lot of people out there that are talented that are going to go on to build the next big whatever in this sport or another sport, and they haven't even gotten started yet. But it is not what everybody makes it look like on Instagram. Like you said, they show the best. I know I have family friends that I know are struggling financially, but man, if you looked at their Facebook page, you would think that they are the most blessed, well-off family in the world. And I think that is the problem with social media, is it sets false expectations. I'm doing a lot in real estate right now. I'm getting started. I'm not a mogul. I'm showing that. Like, I don't want people to think that I'm just like the next real estate mogul and I know what I'm talking about. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I'm sharing every aspect of it where I'm making mistakes and I'm being successful and then making a mistake here and it wiped out all the success I had. Like, I'm trying to show that because I think there needs to be more of that. And I think these conversations are good because there's more ups than downs, but man, you got to be ready for a hell of a lot of adversity to get to where you're eventually going to land if you're serious about it. If you're getting into it thinking it's going to be an easy ride, don't even waste your time, man. Like, it's just not, it's not going to be easy, even if you're in a totally different industry than what Michael and I are in.
Something that I recently kind of learned was two different things. If you're out there and you're starting your business and you're new on the adventure page, ask your friends what they think about your product, because those are the only ones that are going to tell you the truth. And you got to be ready for the worst of the worst. And you've got to take that and accept it and try to go work on it, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, man, there is so many people out there that I've done business with for 4 or 5 years that I've just recently started to reach out to for advice. And people out there genuinely want to help. They genuinely understand what it is to be in your situation. Go talk to people that that are entrepreneurs. If it's you or me, reach out to us. People out there starting businesses, we've learned a lot and we've all made a lot of mistakes, and trust me, you're going to do the same. But there's people out there that are willing to help and to share their knowledge and to share their struggles and to try to help you not create the same. And that's been two things that I've recently learned over the last 6 months that has really helped me elevate myself to another level.
Yeah, it's awesome advice, because I think people are afraid to bother those that are successful because they don't think that they can relate. And that person, even if they're 10 or 15 steps ahead of you, they've been where you're at. And like you said, yeah, I love when people reach out, because I like helping other people, and I've done it too. Like I physically would not be in this industry if it wasn't for reaching out and asking for help from Tim Cotter, Davey Coombs. Like Davey back then, like I was literally a nobody. Like I hadn't even built my business yet. And I asked Davey, like, man, how can I get connected with some of these people to give me a shot in this industry? And like, he gave me advice, and Tim Cotter gave me a shot. And, I've reached out to people in the marketing and the sales industries that are way further ahead than I am. And I just ask them, and you'd be surprised. And I think they do that. They pay it forward because at least this is my reasoning. Like if I try to help somebody, I expect that person, when they get to where they want to be, to do the same thing for the kid that comes and asks them.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people are at with it.
And like, again, going back to the Instagram thing, not to shed more light on it, but man, people out there, I think, are so afraid to talk about their problems, to talk about their struggles. Man, everyone out there's got something they're going through and something that they're working on, right? Like everyone does. And I don't know if, I felt maybe vulnerable to talk to people about my problems, but man, the second that I got someone else's opinion, an outside view of just emotionally or whatever, being so tied into what I was doing, to not be able to see something so simple can really go a long way. And there's a lot of people out there, like you said, that are willing to help. I mean, Tim Cotter and Davey Coombs, those are monsters in our sport, right? Like, who would think that, those people would want to help someone just starting out that's, maybe at the time kind of a nobody.
Yeah.
They wanted to help, there's a lot of people out there like that.
And we're in a cool industry. Like it's a small group of people. And I think, the example of the mechanic comes up a lot. Like, for whatever reason, people want to do that. Like, and mechanics are always happy to talk to people that are wanting to be mechanics and try to scare them out of doing that, or shed light on how to be, how to have a successful path. But like, man, it's like that in every aspect. If you're trying to start a gear brand like Michael has built, or if you're wanting to do graphic design and work for Racer X, like there's a lot of people that can relate, and it's not a massive industry. So, it's like a small family, which is cool. So, man, I've enjoyed this. It's something different. I hope, if you're listening to this or watching it, I hope it's something that you've maybe taken something from or enjoyed. And I'd like to do more of these conversations, because that's what this is, more of a conversation than an interview. And the interviews are cool. I get a lot of great feedback, but man, Michael and I have had a lot of good conversations, and there's a lot of people that have been on this show that have got a lot they could add to this, what we talked about today. So if it's something you liked, reach out and let Michael know, and let me know on social media that you enjoyed this, and man, I'll try to do more. And hell, Michael, we can even have you come back on and do more business talk radio.
It'd be cool to get like a bunch of questions in order of like, maybe if you're watching this and you got questions, and
yeah,
I don't know, maybe some sort of live Q&A deal. I mean, the more that I talk about it, the more that people do reach out and, have questions and this and that. And dude, there's no dumb question. There's not one dumb question. And it's actually funny in the amount of people that, have reached out to me that are starting a new venture, and they're 2 weeks into it, and they've got something that I learned from, that they've already experienced that helps me, So I just think it's cool. Again, interviews are great, but it's always, everything's perfect, this and that. I've got all this great product, It's always that kind of deal. So I don't know. This is maybe more of a raw approach to it.
No
doubt. Definitely let us know if you guys like this kind of topic.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on. I enjoyed it. It's always good talking to you, and this is fun. So we'll absolutely get you back on here soon.
Perfect. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome. Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impact Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.